Picture this, two guys trapped in the South Charleston Public Library. One guy loves movies, the other, well, he'd rather be watching reality TV. Can they survive each other's films? Find out on Real Opposites, a library podcast about movies, hosted by Josh and Aaron from the South Charleston Public Library.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Real Opposites. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And we are back this time to discuss the movies we chose on the last episode. I chose Napoleon Dynamite, and Josh chose
Sorcerer.
All right, so we'll jump right into Sorcerer. Josh, tell us a little bit about Sorcerer and why you chose it.
Well, Sorcerer is a William Friedkin who recently passed away. His, remake of Wages of Fear, which is a famous French film from, I think, 1958. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Wow, look at you.
Wow. Aaron did his research.
But it's really in kind of the basic plot line is the main similarity. The style and tone and is very, very, very different. Sorcerer, so Friedkin was coming off The French Connection, which won Best Picture, and Best Actor for Gene Hackman, and was a big hit. And he was coming off The Exorcist, which is still in the top 10, adjusted for inflation of all time. Think of, we live in a world where today The Exorcist would have made $1 billion just in the U.S.
Wow.
That's how big it was. So I'm reading his autobiography right now. After those two movies, he had quite an ego, and he kind of felt a little bulletproof. So after The Exorcist, he actually took a couple of years off, and he was just he kind of got lost in a lot of different interests, and he kind of got just distracted from filmmaking. And Wages of Fear just kind of came to him. It was a film he loved, and I think he had recently seen it again, and he decided to write Sorcerer with Waylon Green. And so the Wages of Fear, the basic premise is a group of strangers are kind of stuck in this limbo. They're from various walks of life, and they all end up in this small town, and they have to drive a truck full of nitroglycerin across treacherous terrain. Any slight bump will trigger it, and it'll explode. They have to transport it and work together to try to get out alive. That's the basic outline of both films. Sorcerer is gets more dreamlike and surreal as it goes on. It starts very gritty and kind of like The French Connection. Everything's very cinema verite. It's very documentary style. There's no English dialogue for the first 15 minutes, I think, and much of the film is dialogue free, which I love because it's a really pure form of cinema. You're just telling the story with the visuals and the music. So the crazy thing is this movie, it came out a few weeks after Star Wars. In 1977, it opened at the Mann's Chinese Theater. It played for a week. And then after a week, Star Wars came back to the Mann's Chinese Theater, and that was pretty much it. It didn't really it just got squashed by Star Wars, just took over everything. And then even when it went to other countries, some countries, they just renamed it Wages of Fear. Some countries, they cut out sections of the film. Wow. So it just kind of got and it was an expensive film. It cost $20 million. Which in 1977 is a lot of money. And so the distribution deal was that I forget which one got which, but Paramount, Paramount and Universal co-financed the film. One of them got the West Coast of the U.S., the other got the Eastern U.S. So once it kind of finished its short theatrical run, nobody saw it again. It was never released on video or Laserdisc or anything until 1990. It's 13 years you couldn't see it unless you happened to a theater was showing it. So
and that was just because
the rights were so screwed up.
Oh, okay.
No one, both studios had half the country, so it's you can't really send half VHS tapes to this country, to this half, and it's and then there was, I think, just a lack, it just got lost. It's kind of this lost film, and I had heard about it a lot, but I don't think the video store I went to didn't have a VHS of it. I couldn't find a video of it, so I just didn't see it until they finally put it out on Just never got around to it until they put it on Blu-ray in 2013.
Yeah.
That's when I first saw it, and I was just floored by the film. I think it's still Friedkin's. It's the film he's most proud of. It's the film that was the hardest to make, and I think that comes across in the film. Like you've tried to imagine how the bridge sequence, for instance, like just the complexities of filming that. I think it gets better. I mean, it's in my top 20 of all time, and I've probably only seen it. I think this was like the 4th or 5th time I've seen it. So it's not like I've seen it a ton. Every time I see it, I just love it more and more, and I appreciate it more and more. That's Sorcerer, I guess.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Well, I will say the beginning seemed kind of slow for me, even though there was a lot going on. It was weirdly, in a weird way, slow. But I think a lot of it was I did not know that I was going to have to read the first bit.
The subtitles?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I didn't realize that, and I wasn't prepared for that.
Well, a lot of people didn't realize that, and they were like, when they saw it, they did see it in theaters, they were like, "What's this? It's a foreign film?"
Yeah.
And then they walked out.
And I almost texted you last night when I was watching it and asked if it was going to be that way the whole way so I could mentally prepare for that. Because I do like a foreign film if I know that's what it's going to be. Yeah. It's one of those things when it's thrown at me sideways, I don't expect it. It's just one of those things my mind has to wrap around. Or, I have to be like really in the mood to watch. Right as I pulled out my phone to text you, it switched over. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's just here and there. So, but I think it was just where they were telling all the different stories. Some of it to me was just kind of slow, but you kind of have to know that too.
Yeah, they have to set up who each one is.
Right. It was character building is what it was. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the action adventure type movies, and that's what this is with the little twist, I guess. But it wasn't something I really, really got into. It's just something about the action adventure movies I can't get into. There were some good scenes, though. I found the scene where they're picking truck drivers hilarious for some reason. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But I laughed so hard.
It's one of the very few moments I love it. Like the guy that can't figure out what's what, and he's like, that's the...
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. The bridge scene was really good. Yeah. Which I read that the bridge scene, they built one out of steel and all of that, but in the end, they also drove a truck across a real bridge for some of it. And I don't know where that was used or if I read that wrong, but
I think what happened. No, the bridge was all constructed.
Mm-hmm.
The first one they built was in the Dominican Republic, cost $1 million. Wow. As soon as they were constructing the bridge, the river started drying up more and more each week to the point where they finished. It was bare. It was bare.
Oh, wow.
For the first time in history.
Yeah, for the first time ever. And so they were like, so they took the bridge, like dismantled it, and took it to, I think, Mexico?
Yeah.
Tux. I'm not going to pronounce it. I can't pronounce it. Mexico. They took it to Mexico and reconstructed it across another section of river that also dried up as they were constructing.
What?
Yeah. So they eventually just figured out a way to divert water from another river upstream, and then use wind machines to. Yeah. Because they couldn't do it. It was cost prohibitive to do that again because it's another $1 million every time they're moving this bridge.
Right.
They had to put a 24-hour guard on the bridge because the locals believed that the bridge was cursed, and that's why the river was drying up.
Because they heard it was from the director of The Exorcist, and they were very, very religious, superstitious people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it did dry up 2 rivers, so...
And there's something going on there.
Right, exactly.
But no, the bridge sequence, I think, it's really hard pressed to think of a better action sequence than that.
Yeah.
It's so boiled down to its essentials. It's a men in a truck driving a truck across a bridge in treacherous conditions.
Right.
Like across a bridge, and it's just like you feel like the slightest little, sway will just boom. And that's what happened. The trucks flipped over like 5 times.
Oh, wow.
And anytime you see like a medium shot of them in the truck, like driving, it's really the actors driving the truck.
Oh, okay.
Across the bridge. The wide shots are something, man.
Yeah.
And I read that Roy Scheider was in one of the times it flipped over. But yeah, he said making Jaws was cakewalk compared to this.
This was a fraught production. I mean, it said William Friedkin said that approximately 50 people had to leave the film for injury or gangrene.
Or illness.
Wow.
It was shot in Dominican Republic, and it's like
Yeah.
He was
quality of the
stricken
water,
with malaria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Man.
they had to rebuild the bridge a few times.
So it was not an easy production.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No.
And like originally he wanted Steve McQueen for the Roy Scheider part. And Steve McQueen said it was the best script he'd ever made. But he was like, I just married Ally McGraw. Can you shoot this in LA or like in California? And he's like, William Friedkin. I love William Friedkin at this era because he's just like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, what can you make Ally McGraw an associate producer or get her a role in the movie? He's like, there's no women in the movie. There's like one woman
Right.
in the movie. And he's like, no. And he's like, but I mean, I think ultimately he said in his book he ended up regretting that because he said that like the close up of McQueen's eyes are worth more than any landscape. So they could have probably found somewhere in California or somewhere within a few hours or something.
Yeah.
On the West Coast to film a lot of it. But I think he did the right thing because I think if I was watching the movie and it was Steve McQueen, I would be Steve McQueen. I think Roy Scheider's everyman qualities really work in favor of making the suspense more palpable.
And he's a great actor.
I mean, he's a fantastic.
It's not like
I thought he was great in that.
Particularly lesser.
I'm a big fan of him. I like him and like of course Jaws and French Connection. He's a really great actor, and he's not like a movie star the way Steve McQueen is.
Right.
So what happened when Steve McQueen bowed out? There was a lot of other actors that playing the other parts that were like, "Oh, I'm not playing." They were fine with playing second fiddle to Steve McQueen, not fine with playing second fiddle to Roy Scheider. So they dropped out and they had to they recasted most of the roles.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's some history of the movie. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fine.
I just love this movie.
Yeah, the bridge scene was probably what caught my interest the most. Was able to like capture my interest, and I was stuck to it 100%. And I just thought that was, really good. It's not that it's a horrible movie. It's just something that I don't get into easily. There were, like I said, a few scenes, and I also thought this movie was quite brutal.
Yeah,
it kind of gory, and I didn't expect that.
Yeah,
which I'm fine with that.
I mean, it's pretty like uncompromising.
Yeah,
like, the violence and. I mean, there's not like there's a lot of like shootouts, but there's a couple little moments like when they're near the end when they're like guerrillas are trying to take over the truck and stuff.
Yeah.
But what I love so much is you really don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Like it's genuinely on your like on the edge of your seat. Like I don't know. And then like when I forget his name, the Frenchman, when he's talking about his wife and and then it's just like they hit a rock and. He
blows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's life.
Right.
One day you're happy and in love and everything, and then it's just, boom, you're dead.
Yeah.
And I love that about the movie, that it's not romanticized. It is just down and dirty and is a very uncompromising view of life.
Right. Yeah. And that going back to the gore and stuff or even the surprise of that, even the gore was a surprise to me. It would be something small that happens, but they really show what would happen to that person.
Yeah.
Or like, I think there was an explosion and there was just a shot of a guy trying to crawl, but he had like no hands or something, like they had been blown off.
Oh yeah. During like the oil well explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just stuff like that. I will say the one thing that really did confuse me and probably took me out of the movie as well is when all the like kind of magical stuff started happening.
Like at the end?
Like with the trees wrapping around him and stuff.
The hallucinations?
Oh, you mean during the bridge sequence?
Yeah.
No, it's just the river washing debris down there.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was supposed to be like a magical thing, kind of like mountain magic, like in Smoky Mountain Christmas.
No.
Aaron?
It's just...
Well, that confused me because then for the rest of the movie, I was trying to figure out who the sorcerer was.
And that's a problem with the film. And one of the reasons is it didn't catch on because people. So The Exorcist, he made The Exorcist. And then you name a movie, The Sorcerer, and it's like, oh, this is going to be like a supernatural horror kind of movie or something like that. And it's not. But I like the title because, I mean, like if you notice the opening shot, I think, is of this old religious like statue.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a couple other shots throughout, and it's like Sorcerer's like the Wizard of Fate, you know, and that's kind of what the whole film's about.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much you try to outrun it. If you're gonna die, you're gonna die at some point. And that's like even the ending, he makes it all the way back,
and then
those guys from New York, I guess, show up.
Yeah, but that's where I was going with that is, so the whole time I was watching it, that kind of took me out of it once, because also, I swear, if you go back and watch that tree scene, it looks like branches are like growing and wrapping around them. So maybe I just saw it wrong, but I thought it was magical trees. But the thing about it is like, once that happened and I was looking for a sorcerer, I was trying to figure out who it was, so that kind of took me out of it. But when I read it this morning, that Sorcerer is basically fate, and it makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
And with some of these movies that you pick, it's like that, in the fact that if I would to read about it first, I'd probably like them better.
Yeah.
Because that ended up taking me out of the movie, being like, well, who's the sorcerer of these magic trees? Who's the Mountain Magic Dan man?
Yeah, it's part of the reason people were just confused by the title.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, some countries, they renamed it Wages of Fear.
Right.
Just because it'd be like,
so I could see that.
Especially, I think in France, because Wages of Fear is a very famous film in France.
So did it do better in France when they changed the name?
I think it did better overseas in general.
Because it had more than a week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the release schedule for films was more staggered. So it wasn't like now where everything, like a movie just comes out worldwide.
Right.
It'd be like months later it would come out overseas.
Well, and it had a largely French cast too, like people who were in French films consistently.
In this one?
Nilo has a whole bunch of, Francisco Rabal has a whole bunch of French films on his resume.
Yeah, I mean, he's the big French star.
Yeah.
I think originally they were trying to get Master Antonio to be in it.
And Bruno Kramer all have a host.
So, I mean, it has like an international cast too, I think.
Yeah.
So it helped it overseas. It didn't necessarily help it here.
I wonder, I think it might have done better with a different name. I really do.
I mean, it probably would have, but I think ultimately, it was out of touch at the time.
Right.
Because I think, starting in like 1967, films changed. Bonnie and Clyde, Graduate, Easy Rider, they changed. They were more in touch with what was happening in the world and in society and pop culture, because the Hollywood system had pretty much been dismantled at this point. They had been bought up by corporations. Most of the old executives had either retired or died off, and they sold the companies.
Yeah.
And they made stuff like Cleopatra, films that were very expensive that had almost bankrupted Fox.
Wow.
And that were just out of touch. And then so films like Bonnie and Clyde and these come along, and they're just like really energetic, and they're inspired a lot by like the French New Wave. So just different storytelling techniques and more. Right. And the MPAA had been created at this point, so the rating system went up to X. And not long after it had been created, the Midnight Cowboy, which was an X-rated film with John Voight and Dustin Hoffman. It's a great film. It's like one of the best films ever. It won Best Picture. So it's like at this, like an X-rated film won Best Picture.
Right.
1968. So there was more freedom to show sex, violence, more the complexities of life in a more artistic fashion. And by the time you get to Jaws, Rocky, and Star Wars, and especially by like Reagan era, like in the early 80s, just the taste of pop culture has changed. Right. And we're out of Vietnam. We want to be happy. We want to be comforted. So these kind of movies, like The Exorcist or French Connection or Sorcerer, those kind of movies, which were very popular, like Taxi Driver, very popular in that era from like 67 to 77, are just not as in touch as Star Wars or Jaws or Rocky or Close Encounters or Superman or any of those like big movies from the late 70s.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
And then just opening so close to Star Wars, which no one expected it.
Right.
But anyway, just by the time those Sorcerer came out, just the taste had started to change. Yeah. It just wasn't as in touch, which is sad.
Kind of like it was just released at the wrong time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like those films weren't still made. They wouldn't be given the level of creative freedom that Sorcerer, or the one that really broke it was Heaven's Gate by Michael Cimino. He made The Deer Hunter a couple years earlier, which won Best Picture. It was, it's one of the best films ever.
Yeah.
And then he made Heaven's Gate, which is like a 3.5-hour Western with Chris Christopherson. And they ended up cutting it like almost in half. The film flopped, naturally. And then that was kind of the end of the auteur era.
Oh, okay.
So films in the 80s were largely concerned with just making you happy. And
Right.
if it was a sequel, cool, a remake, or just generally less creativity. It's like in the 80s, there's some great films that came out of there.
Yeah.
Like unquestionable. But it's kind of the same as like the 50s, just for different reasons. Like the 50s, the 40s and 50s, but especially the 50s, there was the Hays Code, which is basically a censorship board. So you couldn't put certain things, like a man and a woman couldn't sleep in the same bed unless they were married.
Right.
Like, and you couldn't show violence. If you had a gangster movie, the gangster had to die at the end. Like, there was no moral ambiguity, and there was directors that were like Hitchcock or that would work through that and like kind of play the system as much as they could, but they were very limited. But by the 80s, it was like a self-imposed censorship board by audiences in a way, because they were just like, no, we'll just keep making Rockies and we'll keep showing up.
Stuff.
Keep making Beverly Hills Cop. We'll keep showing up. Just these.
Right.
And not that some of those aren't great movies. I love the Rocky movies, but like there's less creativity at that level of budget, like given money and time and creativity and freedom. And then by the 90s, you get the independent scene with like Tarantino and Miramax. They start bringing in more foreign films and more independent films, and it's kind of like a second renaissance of that period in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Actually, the Hays Code even prevented married couples being shown in the same bed.
Oh, was it that too?
Yeah, that's why in like the sitcoms from the 40s, 50s, 60s, when they show a married couple's bedroom, they have
two separate beds.
Like the Brady Bunch.
Like the Brady Bunch or I
They
Love
had
Lucy.
separate beds.
They have separate beds in Lucy too.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Hays Code went to TV.
Yeah, it said so basically you got a whole lot of married couples sleeping in separate beds for at least 20 years. They probably established it for movies, and then TV followed suit, because obviously TV is going to be more repressive generally than
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
think that's part of also what made those movies in the 60s and 70s more revolutionaries, and more people wanted to see them because it was like something you can't see on TV.
Right.
Or you had never seen in a film before.
Yeah. So if this would have been released at a different time, when do you
if
think
this had
would have
been
been
released
a good,
in like 73 or 74,
so just a few
like
years earlier?
If he had done The Exorcist and went straight into this, and this had come out in like 75, I think it would have been a much bigger hit. And also, just get it away from Jaws.
Right.
Don't release it 2 weeks after Jaws either. In 75, I think it would have been much better hit, and it would have, maybe he would have been able to get Steve McQueen,
right?
Because he wouldn't have been married to Ally McGraw and would be fine with going to another country to shoot the movie. So no, unquestionably, if he had got Steve McQueen, it would have been a bigger hit.
Okay.
But Steve McQueen put butts in seats.
Yeah.
Even at that point, which he's kind of winding down his career. So and then it wouldn't have been lost for 13 years. And
it's interesting how that happens to just, because you never know when you're releasing a film, you never know what it's going to do.
No, there's
nobody knew that Star Wars was going to be this big thing.
Everyone thought it was going to flop,
right?
And this one's coming from like a prestige director with like a big budget and a cast.
Yeah.
So it's just so much today is just built on opening weekends, and and that's not how film lasts. Like a film's not meant to just be seen once,
right?
And history has shown that like the best films are not necessarily the ones that had big opening weekends or were popular at all when they came out. Like Citizen Kane was a financial failure. Blade Runner flopped.
Hocus Pocus. It did flop.
Do you hear the crickets?
It did flop, and now it's like a...
Yeah, fair enough.
I know you don't like it, but it's like
not
a
on the same level as Citizen Kane or Blade Runner, but like, yeah. It has. Man, I don't even know if that's a cult following anymore. Like,
I don't know
that one's popular.
Yeah,
that's just a popular movie at this point. Like they sell tons of crap about it.
Yeah,
like
they do
costumes and all kinds of Halloween stuff. But yeah, the best movies aren't the ones that are popular at the time.
Right,
because a lot of them are ahead of the time.
You were even mentioning like Heaven's Gate, like it recently was put on BBC's top 100 list.
Yeah, and I mean,
movies.
especially the director's cut. He was able to go back and Criterion put out like a Blu-ray of the full version of his film, and it's a much better film.
Oh,
Clearly, because it's what he wanted.
right.
And he's a good director. Like The Deer Hunter is one of the best war movies ever made. I mean, it's one of the best films. Like, it's heartbreaking. And he's a gifted director, but that they kind of gave a lot of these guys like Friedkin and Spielberg and Lucas free reign, kind of as much as any directors have ever been given.
Yeah.
But as soon as it dries up, Friedkin says, I think it was he was talking about just in Europe, maybe it was France specifically. In America, you're only as good as your last movie.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe, you're only as good as your best movie.
Oh.
So it's like it's a more of an overall view of your filmography of like what your body of work, not just the last film you made.
Right.
Anyway.
See, this is my thing. It always is the next day when I read about it that I can look back and be like, okay, this movie makes a little more sense to me. I see what they were doing. It's almost like knowing the work that goes into something makes it better to me.
It does. Like knowing that's one of the things I love about film is like learning about how they made it.
Yeah.
I like to find out what it means, on my own sometimes, but it's nice to hear the director or the writer, or the actors talk about what this scene means to them, what this movie means to them, and how it fits into, because film is a historical account of society, of what was popular at that time. What does it say about ourselves at any given moment? And it's the fun thing is to put a film in context with the time that it was made and what was going on in the movie business and in society in general is a lot of fun to read about.
Right.
You just need to watch like the director's commentary afterwards, and then come in and talk about it.
Sadly, there is no director's commentary.
That means I'd have to watch it like twice, and
you just let the director's commentary run and pick up.
Maybe you just read the first few pages of the trivia like before
the movie.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things.
You might need to do that,
yeah, that's one of my favorite things about doing the podcast is learning the stuff like from you or from the trivia and learning more about the movie and, what happened during the movie, like the making of and things like that. And it always makes the movie seem a lot better to me.
It's happened a few times where you're like, it wasn't crazy. Then we start talking about it. You're like, oh yeah, I kind of like that.
Right. Yeah. And it happens a lot to me, but during this movie, when I was watching it, some of it took me out of the movie or I felt a little bored during it. But that also goes, once again, to the fact that I don't really get into these action adventure movies very often. Same as with Indiana Jones. I couldn't really get into it. Like the suspense wasn't there for me. Now, there were a couple times during the bridge scene of this movie that it was kind of suspenseful because you were dealing with the explosives, you were dealing with the truck itself, you were dealing with the bridge and the storm, and there were a lot of things going on to make it intense.
The way that he focuses the camera on the little things that could go wrong, like the driving, like snapped another piece of the bridge, and the shots where the bridge, like the truck is swaying on the bridge, and it's just like, how is this thing staying upright? And it's like that's real, and it's like it's there's no CG there. It's just a real stunt, and it's really incredible to watch. It's very suspenseful.
Yeah.
I have vivid memories of watching that the first time, the bridge sequence. And I love what the film says. Like, it's almost like these four guys they're living on the wrong side of the law. Right. One way or the other. And they all end up in limbo in this small South American town, which was actually like a real place. And he said it was like, Freakin says it was like a prison just without walls. And then they drive this, it's kind of like, almost like the levels of hell till they finally die. Right. All the things they have to go through. Like, they have to blow up the tree, they have to go across the bridge, they have to do all these things. Yeah. Just to die. And yeah. I don't know. It's just a powerful film.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Had I known this was about fate, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, had I just known that, It makes so much sense. And you can see these people are, it's like you said, they're on the wrong side of the law. And then they move, they run from their problems to this town. And then they get an opportunity that I guess everybody wanted for the money. But, it's a suicide mission, basically. But to these people that have ran, it's almost like a second chance.
Yeah, no,
so
it's
they're
their
getting
opportunity
a second chance
to call their way out of purgatory.
Right. So they're getting that second chance of life. They go through all these obstacles and most of them just die.
But they're on the razor's edge the whole time. Like,
right.
It could go either way.
Yeah. And there were also some scenes that I thought something was going to happen, and then that did not happen. So it did. There were also things that caught me by surprise. I can't really remember exactly what it was. There was one where I thought somebody was going to die, and I was like, okay, well, this is so obvious. And then it didn't happen, and I was like, oh, okay, well, guess it's not.
He does that a lot in his films. Like he will cut abruptly to put you off kilter. Like, oh, that seems like a weird cut. Then he'll he'll do another one, and it'll be like the cuts and everything are very carefully planned to put you on edge.
Yeah, so I think it did that in certain parts, and that goes back to, like I said, about reading about it. When I finished it last night, I'm like, I got through it finally. But reading about it and learning about it, I'm like, okay, things make more sense, and maybe it was a better movie than I thought it was while I watched it. Yeah, yeah, I like learning about things. Sorcerer.
So we have it in the collection, and we may be adding the Blu-ray soon because the DVD is really terrible. Just because the DVD is in full screen, like it's not widescreen like it's intended,
right?
Which I didn't realize when I ordered it.
And that's one thing that I used to never know, because I was always like, I don't care what it is. I mean, pretty much I still don't, but I do know that when they make it full screen, when that was like the main thing they were doing.
Yeah, when you had square CRT TVs,
It cut out a lot of the actual movie, though. So you could miss things that were important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like on really widescreen movies, like, Die Hard, for instance, or Raiders of the Lost Ark, like what would be one shot if you had two characters on right or left side of the frame, like far or left or right. In the VHS, like the pan and scan version, it would either artificially pan across the frame or just cut. So you'd cut from this to this, and it would be two shots instead of the one shot as it was intended to be.
Right. That's a big difference.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it matters how you watch the movie, and to watch it as close as you can to how it was shot and intended to be seen.
Right.
So I would love to see Sorcerer on the big screen.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get that chance at some point.
That could be interesting. You could rent out a spot and play it. They do that nowadays.
That's true. Do they still do that?
They still do that.
I was looking at doing one in December, but
I think they still do. I think definitely Park Place.
Yeah.
But I think I might have saw it at Marquee too.
I'll have to call it there. I'm thinking of doing that for my birthday this year.
Yeah.
No.
That could be fun. All right. So that's Sorcerer. We're going to take a break and have some announcements from the library, and then we'll be back to discuss Napoleon Dynamite and Josh's whole experience.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Hey everyone, this is Kendall from SUPL Youth Services with your update for the month of September. We have lots planned this month, so we hope that you will join us. Starting on September 5th, right after Labor Day, we're going to have our weekly story times again on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. On Tuesdays, we'll be starting something new. We're going to have a Spanish story time where we will read and play and learn in both Anglais and Espanol, or English and Spanish. And then on Thursdays will be the return of our Words and Wiggles program. And again, those are both at 10:30 in the morning. On Wednesday afternoons from 4 to 5, we'll have our Teen Territory programs. And these are open to students in grades 6 through 12. And we'll be doing a little something different every week. So stay tuned to our Facebook page for specifics. But I will let you know that the first week on September 6th, we'll be doing a group mural craft. And then the second week on the 13th of September, we're going to have a smoothie creation taste-off. So Those are our regular weekly programs. We also have some special events in the month of September. September 9th is the South Charleston Arts and Crafts Festival at the Mound from 9 to 5 p.m. And we hope that you'll stop by the Mound to meet with us and the Itty Bitty Therapy Horses, who will be our special guests, that Saturday between 11 and 2. You'll be able to pet these adorable horses who we hear will be appearing in costume. So if you have a little one who's a fan, especially of unicorns, you might want to stop by. And again, that's Saturday the 9th between 11 and 2. We have Lego Night on September 12th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. This is kind of an open house style program where you can pop by with your kids anytime during those hours that are convenient. And we will have Legos out, traditional Legos, and larger blocks for smaller hands. And you can create whatever you imagine, or we'll have some themed ideas for you to use as well. And then finally, on Tuesday, September 26th, we have a Mission to Mars solar eclipse program. And you may or may not know that coming up in October, we have our annular eclipse happening on Saturday, October 14th. And so this program on September 26th will help you learn what an eclipse is. You'll get a chance to pick out safe viewing glasses, eclipse glasses for you and your family. And this family-friendly event on solar eclipses will be in the evening from 6:30 to 7:15 p.m. So we hope you'll join us for one or more of our great September programs. We're great to be back in business after an August full of planning. And now I'm going to hand it off to Toby with your adult announcements for September. Thanks so much. Bye.
Hey guys, this is Toby with Adult Services. Just coming in to let you know that book club is back. So if you would like to participate in the SCPL book club, you can pick up your books starting September 5th here at the library. Just come by and sign your book out. We will discuss those books on September 25th at 6 p.m. So you'll have a whole 20 days to read those books and then bring them back in to discuss on September 25th. Between then, we have a few craft programs, which are always a great time here. The first one, we have a cottagecore inspired polymer clay workshop on September 11th, starting at 6 p.m. We will be making cute little mushroom critters and gardeny kind of crafts. Our next craft will be September 18th at 6 p.m., which we are going to turn damaged books into pumpkins. So a great way to recycle books that can't really be read anymore, don't have a home anymore. So we'll be recycling some damaged books and turning them into very cute little paper pumpkins. Our last big thing for the month of September, and this is for adults and my children can come too. It's a community event. We have the book brunch, which is a great opportunity we have some local authors and publishers coming in to talk about, writing and also to share their books. And we will have some light refreshments available for people who come to that as well. So you can come by anytime that day. Book brunch is from 11 to 3 p.m. Walk through, talk with some of our local authors, check out their work, and talk with some of our local publishing houses as well. So that will be great. And that will be 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, September 30th. So the last Saturday in September. We hope to see you there. All right, turning it back over to the guys for the rest of the show.
All right, so we're back from the announcements, and we're going to jump into the next movie, Napoleon Dynamite. And I chose this one. It's a 2004 film that when it came out, I don't know. There was something about it that I absolutely loved.
Cool.
And because it has that, well, I guess it was an independent film.
Oh, yeah.
And it actually started as a short. Mm-hmm. The director, Jared Hess, did a short with Napoleon. With John Heder. And
playing that character, essentially,
yeah, it was a different title, different character, but it kind of became Napoleon Dynamite. And originally he was going to get somebody else to play, but he's stuck with John Heder. And am I saying his name right? Is it Heder? Okay, good. And yeah, what?
Honestly, I saw him live and I can't remember how he pronounced it.
Yeah, there were so many good quotes from it, and I used to use them all the time in real life. I was pretty obsessed, I guess, in a way with this movie at that time. And I had the Tina, You Fat Lard t-shirt. Actually, my sister and I both had them. And then I remember I had like a favorite pair of pants at the time. They got a hole in them. And I went to Hot Topic and got a Tots patch for him.
Like a little pocket that you could put tots in?
No. My pants got a hole in them, like on the knee.
And it just said tots.
Oh, you just got a patch that said tots.
It was like it said I love tots or something like that. Anyways, and I wore those around school. Looking back, probably not the best decision, or that's probably why I was like Napoleon Dynamite in school, kind of. Anyways, I don't know. I find it hilarious. This was the first time I've watched it in a long time, and man, I still laughed hard. There were a couple parts that hit me a little different, and I'm like, oh, that's not as PC as it probably should be, but it was also a different time. And
I think a lot of that though kind of hit me, just for me, it hit me differently. Like it was like, oh, where it was still very funny, right? Yeah. But for me, it was more of like, yeah, like this is still very funny, but there's a lot more heart in it than I remembered there being.
Yeah, they're definitely, and that's part of the whole story is, that basically they believe in themselves and they end up doing what they want to do.
Right.
And as long as you put your heart into it, it can turn out good.
But and everyone in Napoleon's life, like his whole family, everybody like lets him down, but like he still gets through it. And right. It was surprisingly heartwarming. I hadn't seen it in a long time, so I don't remember that.
Yeah, but to me, it was hilarious. That's why I chose the film. It's something I've been wanting to do, but we did do it this time specifically because in Charleston, West Virginia, they did a Napoleon Dynamite event, which I did not get to go to, but Josh did. Yeah. So tell us about your experience and what you thought of the movie.
So I'd never seen Napoleon Dynamite, and so we got VIP tickets to meet the John Heater, John Grise, and Efron Ramirez. So Napoleon, Uncle Rico, and Pedro. And it was a great time. They were super sweet. We got pictures. John Grise is the Wolfman in Monster Squad, one of my favorite movies, and I got my VHS in a Blu-ray and a VHS thing autographed. He was really sweet. They weren't really doing autographs, but he autographed it anyway. They were the best. And they even pointed me out in the crowd later after the movie, and they're like, "How many of you have never seen Napoleon Dynamite?" And I was pretty much the only person who put their hand up. He was like, "What'd you think? Was it better than Monster Squad?" And I was like, not as good as Monster Squad. But I mean, if you're gonna watch Napoleon Dynamite for the first time, watching it with several hundred hardcore, there's so many Vote Pedro shirts.
Yeah, I used to have that.
I was wearing my Monster Squad shirt.
Yeah.
So when it came out, the movie just didn't look like it was up my alley anyway. And then I had a friend that was like, I don't know, he didn't like it because it felt like it was really making fun of people like that. And I was like, I'm not really into that. I'm not really feeling that right now. And so I just never saw it. And, I knew it was really popular and it was very quotable. It was quoted a lot. Just never saw it. And when the movie started, I was starting to feel like, it felt like it was just making fun of them, not allowing me to really empathize with them. Yeah. But as the movie went on, it definitely grew on me. I felt like the movie started to really, instead of kind of brutalizing the characters and making them whipping boys, it really started to root for him. Yeah. Like the movie, like the script did. Right. And I found it was a very cute, sweet, little endearing comedy and very quirky. I totally get why it's so quoted. Yeah. I even had tots.
Oh yeah,
because they were serving tater tots.
Oh my gosh,
that's awesome!
Way overpriced tater tots that I would never. $15 for a small little thing of tater tots.
Wow,
Clay Center, you crazy?
Was it loaded tots or?
There were loaded tots. Like there was like a
no, the $15 small ones.
They were all 15. I just got plain because I don't do all the dairy and all that. But so there were like a loaded one with like some cheese and jalapenos, and there was another one with like pulled pork. There were different varieties, but I just got regular tots, and I was like, so we ordered them, and I was like, what, $15? Are you serious?
I'm sure they were charging that because of the event.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's just like, and they're just like frozen tots from
right from
like a Kroger bag. It's like it's just ludicrous, but I mean, it's part of part of the thing. I totally get why. That was before the movie,
Right.
so I totally get why the tots.
Yeah.
And that was definitely one of the cringiest parts. Is like when he's taking him out of the pocket. I'm like, oh my god, don't do it, don't do it.
The other guy asking for one.
Yeah,
Can
it's
I have
like,
one of your pocket
give me one of your
tots?
tots.
Yeah.
Have some of them tots.
Then he kicks him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every interaction in this movie is like secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah,
Like-
pretty much. Pretty much.
It sounds like it was a great time. I hate that I missed it. I was going to go at last minute. I was going out of town, and I ended up having so much stuff to do that I wasn't able to go.
Yeah, then they came after the movie, which, I mean, everyone was really laughed. Really, I mean, it was a lot of laughter and applause and stuff. Yeah. And they came out and did, I don't know, probably a solid hour and a half of.
Oh, wow.
Like, they came out on this little skit. Like, they had some, like, shtick
Oh,
going.
that's
Like,
cool.
all three
I was
of
going to
them.
ask, please tell me that John Heder danced.
Someone asked him to dance, but he did not dance.
Oh.
Because so what his big thing
So
was,
good.
a lot of the questions were like, so like one of them was like, did you choreograph the dance? And he was like, what you see is what's in the film is what you see. Like, like that was all improvised. He just did it. And like so much of the movie was just improvised. Right. But they did a little thing where, like Uncle Rico throws the steak at Napoleon.
That's
really, there's some really great physical comedy in the movie. It's just it's very deadpan and it really works. It's similar to the Amelan death.
Yeah.
Amelan and Buffy. Like it's just very deadpan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love when the Napoleon and Kip are talking about fighting or something.
Yeah.
And the phone rings or the doorbell rings and he catches Kip off guard and just slaps him, and then he's like, "Oh man!" Like that's one of my favorite ones.
Kip was great.
Yeah.
But
Kip is
John
great.
Grice talks about throwing the steak at him, and so like they had done a few takes, I guess, and John Grice apparently played baseball and like I guess was pretty close to going to the majors when he was younger.
So it probably hurt.
Yeah, and he was like, he'd like just missed a few times, and he's like, because he's not really like giving it his all, and he went to the director and he's just like, just let me really throw it. He's like, I don't really want to hurt him, but I can hit it if you
let me throw.
Like they were running out of film for the day because it's a low budget movie and film costs money.
I think
And
they filmed in like 22 days or something.
So they let him just throw it as hard, like really throw it like he's throwing a fastball.
Oh,
and that's the take in the movie, and it really knocks him off the bike, and you can feel it when it hits him in the face, like it's a big whack. So they did this
knocks
thing.
his glass.
They did this thing where they called up 3 people from the audience, and they had John Grice, Uncle Rico, ride around the stage on a bike, and had them throw like a plush steak at him to see if they could hit him. And so that was great. And they came out with like this little song and dance, and they just had a lot of very colorful, fun stories about the movie. And you can clearly tell how much affection they have for each other. Like they're good friends, and apparently they do this a good bit, like go to cities and do Napoleon Dynamite showings and Q&As.
I'm gonna have to track one down and go to it because now I like hate that I missed it.
It was a lot of fun. It was really great. I mean, I like the movie too, so I'm really happy I like the movie. But
that's awesome.
Even if the movie had sucked, just meeting them in the Q&A would have been great. But the movie was very, very funny, and one I will definitely be watching for the rest of my life, probably.
Awesome. I think that's the first one that I've recommended that reaches that status for you.
Well, I think it's because my significant other it's like one of her favorite movies. So her whole family loves it. Like her mom came in.
Right.
Yeah.
And
She
went
was
with
very
us.
much like, I hope he likes it because
If not,
that's a problem.
This is a
if he
deal breaker.
doesn't.
So no, like we'll probably watch it on a yearly basis or close to that.
yeah, I think I need to. But I mean, it was like I said, I hadn't seen it in forever, probably since back then, and I would just like watching it. Not only was it like nostalgia for me, but it also just reminded me I absolutely love this movie. Like I just love it. It's great. It's hilarious. It's quirky.
It definitely goes to the beat of its own drum.
Yeah, 100%. And you hit on the, making fun of people. And, that is something I was reading about this movie, that a lot of people think it is, too cringy because it's making fun of people. But it wasn't meant to do that at all. It actually was meant to show the the people that are like that in high school, the kids that aren't the jocks or aren't that kind of get lost in the shuffle of everyone and what they deal with, as well as, how it makes them feel and things like that. So it wasn't intended at all to make fun.
No, I think it definitely comes across, like, once you start getting into the movie, that it's really, you really end up rooting for them, and you can feel that the cast and everyone really loves playing the characters, and that they're really, it ends up being a really sweet little movie.
Yeah. With tons of funny parts.
Many funny parts. I lost it when, was it LaFonda?
LaFonda. She's my favorite.
Gets off the bus and their whole relationship.
Yeah.
And then I think the next scene you see him, like, she gives him a chain. The next scene he's like all gangstered out and like
He has a do-rag
it's
and
like FUBU and stuff and everything. He's got big chains, and I think he might have had a gold tooth. I don't know, but
I don't remember.
That was great. Like I really loved Kip. Kip was really fun.
She's one of the first. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say she's one of the first characters, the adults in his life that actually like supports him.
Oh yeah,
She it's like, and I love her coming in and being like, oh well, here's a mixtape and like, what you do.
One of my favorite quips, and one that we used to say all the time, comes from Kip, and it's when Deb comes to try to sell stuff to Napoleon on his porch.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, I'm trying to sell this to go to college, and just in the background Kip is, your mom goes to college.
Mom goes what?
And it pans to him for a second just looking at the door, and that's it. And it makes her upset, and she runs away and leaves her stuff there. But that is forever one of my favorite quotes. Your mom goes to college. Because it was off screen. Like, it made it better that they didn't show him while they said it.
Yeah, you just hear it off screen. It's great.
It's just like they would have heard it.
There's the comedic timing is really, really pretty much perfect.
Yeah.
Like, all the jokes really land because you could tell like they're enjoying doing this.
Yeah.
And they're cracking up probably like as soon as the cut, like, as soon as they stop rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, I loved Kip. Uncle Rico was great. Always going on about his high school days.
Yeah. I like when he's like, his wife divorced him.
Go ahead.
Wife divorced him because he's stuck in the past.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I'm not stuck in the past. Do you believe in time travel? Because I could go back. And like, if they just put me in.
On a time machine.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, and they had a time machine.
Yeah.
Like on stage.
Oh, that's great.
They had the little box. It was like almost the same.
That's awesome.
Size. And they had like a piñata up and the, what's the game with the ball on the pole? Tetherball. They had one of those up too.
That's hilarious.
And
I'm so sad I didn't go.
One of the questions was like, do you practice the tetherball? He's like, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And apparently like the person that they had hired that they wanted to play Napoleon, that's who he was.
Oh,
like, he was like that.
Oh, okay.
But then when they put him in front of the camera, like he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He couldn't just be himself. So they got John Hitter, who was only paid $1,000.
$1,000.
Oh, wow.
That is.
But he's got money since.
Oh, I'm sure he got like a percentage or something too. But like, whew.
It said they've paid him better since the movie actually was a hit and made money.
Well, he did this and then he did like Blades of Glory. I'm sure that was like a big payday.
Yeah.
That was a big.
Yeah, this was like his first thing, I think.
Yeah.
Because they also mentioned, I saw somewhere that they thought about.
He does a ton of voice acting now. John Heder does. Mm-hmm.
I forget who, but it was another actual star at the time that they were going to get to do it. But then they decided to stick with him because he was less known, and they just thought it'd fit better. Yeah.
Now, like they never say it in the plot, but Napoleon Dynamite is largely regarded as like it's on several like psychologist lists of best movies with characters with Asperger's or like autism, and so that's the prevailing theory from psychologists who watch the film about like what is it about him that makes him be othered by all of these people, because like there are other awkward characters, lots of other awkward characters, but like saying things like, do you drink that because you think you're fat? You could drink whole milk if you wanted to.
when he goes to talk to Deb for the first time. That is.
Yeah, or like,
it's just,
it's so good.
It's all so good. Yeah.
So cute, yeah.
Or like he wants his chapstick because my lips hurt real bad.
Come get me. My lips hurt real bad. I don't want to use her chapstick. Gross.
Love that. And it was shot in only 22 days. And like you said, it had a small budget. I like this little the little trivia here. In real life, Tina the llama, its name is actually Dolly, and she belongs to Jared Hess, who's the director co-writer, his mother. So like they were just like, we need an animal. My mom has a llama.
Yeah.
We'll use that.
But it's so
so
perfect for that movie.
It's perfect. You don't expect to see a llama.
Right. Yeah. What other movie has a pet llama?
Shout out for Sandy Martin, who plays the grandmother. You guys watched It's Always Sunny?
Yeah, I saw she popped up and was like, I was like, oh, Sunny.
She's Mac's mom, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and she plays a very similar character. It's the same. It's the same mom.
That Kip Aaron Rule apparently had real braces put on for his teeth.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
That is dedication. Sir.
Oh, and they thank the two orthodontists in the credits.
Yeah,
that's great.
This has like the longest credits, like all 181 extras at the high school workers.
Well, great. That and the plates and the pizza and the
opening credits.
And the opening credits.
That's what I was going to say. So every dish during the open credits is eaten by a character later in that movie. But there are also the other parts. You see his chapstick. You see different things like that. That was actually ended up being shot after the movie because audiences were just thrown into the movie and they felt they needed something different. I also read that they at first rejected it because they wanted a model's hands instead of John Hedder's hands in the opening for some reason, but it ended up mainly being John Hedder's hands anyways. But I love that opening scene, and it is a longer opening scene, but it makes sense to the movie. I guess maybe not the first time you watch it, but I don't know. I even laughed at the opening little credits.
Yeah, no, it's cute. It's a cute little, I like that part. Set you up for what's coming.
There's also full 5-minute after credits scene.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that. I felt that was a little like, it just went on for a long time.
To me, it felt like they were just like goofing around and wanted to do something extra, which is like, I think that's fun, for what Napoleon Dynamite is.
Oh, you know what? I didn't watch that.
Oh, it's LaFonda and Kip's wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I forgot to watch that.
It's just kind of like, it felt like its own little mini movie almost. Like it went on for a long time.
I need to go back and watch that because I forgot to watch that yesterday. Yeah, like I said, it's just so fun, and I don't know. I just find it so hilarious.
Well, one of the things that it struck me like pretty early was it felt like Mike Judge and Terry Zwigoff had a baby, and that's what this movie is.
I don't know what those are.
Mike Judge did Beavis and Butthead. And, King of the Hill.
Yeah,
and Terry Zwigoff is mostly, I think it's how did you say it? Mostly what I know is Ghost World. With Scarlett Johansson and Thor Birch and Steve Buscemi, like that, some of the characters and the situation, like the comedy and the just the sense of humor feels a lot like a mesh between those two.
Oh, okay.
Probably a little bit more Mike Judge, like the characters. They feel very animated.
Yeah,
they feel very. I could totally see them. Apparently, did they do an animated?
So they did.
Because they were talking about that. I didn't even know that.
They did do an animted series.
Someone wanted them to do more.
There's a video game also.
But, I didn't know that. It only ended up airing 6 episodes. It didn't end up doing well, although the cast came back and did the voices. So it was the full regular cast. I actually forgot about that, and I originally wanted to watch it, so now I'll have to go back and watch those 6 episodes one day. Just see what it's like.
It reminded me, the humor reminded me a lot, because we were just talking about this movie the other day, of like Best in Show. Also, like just having like that kind of very deadpan, and it's just like these are weird interactions.
It's very awkward.
All of it is.
It lives in like the silence in between the dialogue, and
it's like you giggle uncomfortably.
Yeah,
which is not. I mean, that is part of what makes it funny. Is you're just like. Like, why?
It's the kind of comedy I wish Buffy had more of.
Yeah.
Like something a little bit more
quippier,
focused and like less broad.
Yeah. I see. This goes back to, like I said earlier, about Sorcerer, learning about the movie and just seeing things. There's two of the little trivias that we sometimes look through that I like. It. Napoleon's big dance scene at the end was the last scene scheduled, but film ran out, so the sequence is actually edited together from less than 10 minutes of dancing.
Oh, okay.
So it was like a last minute thing. It was the last thing shot, so it was definitely just made up on the spot. And then
edited together his favorite takes.
Yeah. And also, when Kip is on the computer at the beginning of the film writing La Fonda, all the words he is saying are completely improvised. And it says if you listen closely, you can also hear him singing a little bit right as the grandma comes in.
I love Uncle Rico with Kip. He's talking about the woman troubles and stuff.
Yeah.
So good.
I like that through the whole movie. You really think La Fonda's fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she shows up.
Until she shows up. And a lot of the comedy does come from Kip. I think it's a big part of it. Also, when he's selling Pyrex or not Pyrex, but like what's
Pirates.
it called?
Tupperware.
Tupperware. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like Tupperware or Pyrex, I guess. Either one. But whatever he was selling, Uncle Rico has people try to tear it.
Yeah.
Kip decides to put it behind the van tire and run over to show how strong it is. And he runs over it, and of course it shatters, and then he just drives off. He just doesn't even worry about it. He just drives off.
So good.
I love Kip just getting beat up by the Taekwondo instructor.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
He's
I
just
didn't know Diedrich Bader was in it too. It's Rex Kwando.
Rex
Yeah.
Kwando.
Yeah, he's great.
So what's some other things he did? Because I don't know that name.
You've seen Office Space, right?
I've seen the movie Office Space.
Movie Office Space.
Yeah.
He's the dude who's he's Ron Livingston's next door neighbor with the mustache. He like works construction.
Oh, okay.
Like if I had $1 million.
Yeah. That's another movie I want to rewatch soon. Because I remember loving that movie.
Because I mean that's a Mike Judge movie.
Oh, okay.
So it's a very kind of similar sense of humor, quirky characters, kind of deadpan delivery, like very like minimal blocking.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like this movie, it also has the perfect characters for it.
Oh,
and all the characters are needed. I mean, even Kip, Kip isn't a huge character, but he is in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I love Kip. He's maybe my favorite character.
Right. And I mean, his comedy, but I mean, it's actually focusing on like Napoleon and Pedro. But all the extra characters are so needed and just make the movie amazing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the whole ensemble.
Yeah.
Really makes the movie very memorable.
So apparently the over there in that pig pen, I found a couple of Shoshone arrowheads, was not part of the script. It's literally that guy telling them about where he found arrowheads. And they just like kept it in the movie. Like it was just happened to catch it at the end of a take. And we're like, yep.
The scene where they're working in the chicken coop he was talking about, it was just like, what you see is what you get. The chicken's like, it smells terrible. We did like one take. That was it. He's like, how do you... It was in the movie they asked, like, did the chickens have talons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, so he, like, John Heder, like, asked the farm, the farmer or whatever, like, so how do you hold the chickens? Like, hold it like this, walk, put it in there. It's like, it's all improvised, like what he did.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
That's great.
And then, oh my God, that was disgusting with the eggs out at the, like when they're at the outside and they're having lunch. Mm-hmm. And it's just the egg, like a whole like milk jug.
Yeah.
Kind of full of
egg yolk.
Yeah.
And then you can have hard-boiled eggs or you can have egg sandwiches. All of your options for eggs.
That's gross. That was a gross lunch.
And him tasting the milk and being like, what's the defect with this milk?
Hot weather. It's
right. Definitely not what you want.
Flies buzzing.
I'm just going to hurl thinking about it.
I think this movie is what part of what makes it great is, of course, it had a good script and it had good comedic timing, but it is also one of those movies that do a lot with improvising. I mean, my sister and I, it was just we watched it and then we had those quotes that we could use to each other, and
like a movie you bond over. Like, when you,
exactly.
If you really like it, you can just quote it.
Yeah, we bonded over it, and then I don't know how many times we called each other "Tina, you fat lard."
I think John Hader said that's the quote. That's the most quoted line from the movie to him.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
He says like Tina, you
fat lard, come get your dinner.
Yeah, or something like yeah.
Yeah, or come get your dinner, Tina, you fat lard.
Yeah.
Because they always make him feed the llama.
Yeah.
Always thinks that llamas don't eat, like ham, and like casserole.
Yeah,
it's like a whole dish.
Like a whole dish of I don't know. Are they like goats? Do they just eat everything?
Maybe.
Are they omnivores? I would assume that they're not, but that's.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm glad you really liked it. I'm glad I loved it as much as I did when I was younger. I was just glad that it still held up.
Yeah.
And minus a couple little things, but it's great. I would recommend everyone to watch it, and
me too.
I feel like almost everybody would like it. I think
I really liked it.
Yeah, great. That's
probably the best movie you've recommended.
I think
That
it's the
seems
first
right.
one that you said you'll probably watch more.
I mean, I'll definitely
other than I
watch it again.
think you said about Smoky Mountain.
I'll be
Christmas
Clockwork Orange
a little bit,
to watch
but-
this again.
You what?
I'll be Clockwork Orange to watch this. I'm just messing with you. But, no, Smoky Mountain. Like I'm not watching that every year.
No, I know, but
Like it was
at the time you were like, maybe we'll go to there for Christmas. It kind of made you want to.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Just saying, like it was, but this one I think is the one you've definitely liked the most,
Yeah, I agree,
and that makes me happy because it's so hilarious.
I think this is the top movie you've picked.
Awesome.
Nice.
So I'm happy it's not Coyote Ugly or Tammy.
Yeah. See, I have good humor too.
I knew it was going to be fun. Like I don't know, movies like this don't get popular for no reason.
Right.
Like it has to speak to something,
That's true.
and there has to be something about it that people, because there's movies like made for a few $100,000
Yeah.
are made like every day,
Right.
every week. Like so, one that catches on, it's like there's got to be something there.
Yeah, and I love to see like a low budget, quickly shot independent film like this rise to that.
Yeah.
It was such a phenomenon. Like,
Right. Yeah, basically.
You couldn't get away from Napoleon Dynamite stuff
Right.
at the time it came. Like 2004 was the
Everything
year
was-
of Napoleon Dynamite. Like
Exactly.
everything was tots and gosh and
Yeah.
I'm like that was you couldn't get like I wasn't old enough to have really watched and appreciated Napoleon. I was 11 when this came out at the time.
Like if this had come out like a few years earlier when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been. I really would have gotten into it.
Yeah.
But I was like already a couple years out of high school by this point, and it was just like,
Yeah.
it's not my thing.
That makes sense too.
I'm gonna go to watch a Robert Bresson film from 1962.
I just love how confident Napoleon is at all times.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Probably the best drawing I've ever done. I so long on shading,
the shading of your upper lip.
He did say the drawing of Pedro on the like the Pedro for
President.
school president.
Yeah.
That's his favorite one.
Yeah.
That's his favorite.
John
I
Hader
think
did all
it's
of
like
them
him on
besides the unicorn.
At the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did all the drawings beside the unicorn.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you liked it. And, and everybody should see it.
Yep.
So
Check it out.
But I guess that's Napoleon Dynamite. So we've kind of reached the end of this episode, I guess.
Yeah. Comes the point to pick for next.
Okay, so this next episode will be coming out October 1st, and we're going to start our horror movie, season. And we're going to do a little different. We like to shake it up sometimes. So we're going to do Stephen King movies. I'm a big fan of Stephen King. It's mainly what I read if I read. But I'm also somebody that will not watch a movie if I haven't read the book or something like that.
Okay.
So I think what we're going to do, because all the Stephen King movies I have seen are like the great ones that Josh has definitely seen and we've seen multiple times. So what we're going to do is Josh is actually going to pick two movies
That you haven't seen.
that I haven't seen that are Stephen King, and we're going to roll with that.
Okay.
So, movies, Josh.
Okay. The first one I'm going to pick is not based on one of his books, but it's one that he wrote the screenplay for. And that is going to be Creepshow from 1983.
That's the one I've always wanted. It's always referenced a lot when you talk about Stephen King's work.
Yeah.
Like on Stephen King groups I'm in and things like that. That's always referenced. So I'm actually excited to watch that one.
It's a really great horror anthology.
Yeah.
It's a terrific film. And like he has a part in in one of the segments. And
I know he's
very quotable.
Yeah.
It's very quotable. It's really great. And the other one I'm going to pick is going to be, so has Joker said to Batman, I'm going to make you break your one rule. You're going to watch a Stephen King movie that you haven't read the book for yet.
Okay.
And it's going to be The Mist.
All right.
Frank Darabont's adaptation of Stephen King's book.
Okay. Now, I know I've seen parts of it. I think the part I have seen is the end.
And boy, did you pick the wrong ending to watch without watching the movie.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
maybe it'll all make sense by watching it all.
Yeah.
And I guess the audio book is only like 5 hours. So maybe I could listen to that before I watch the movie.
Yeah. I think I'm going to give you my Blu-ray copy because it has the black and white version.
Okay.
And it's a much... Like the film's the same. There's no difference in the content. It's just it's in black and white, and it's a much. I think it's the better version to watch.
Okay.
And Frank Darabont, like he originally wanted to shoot it in black and white, but the studio made him shoot it in color. But so then when they came to do the Blu-ray, they took all the color out and made it black and white. And it's clearly you watch and it's like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be in black and white.
Yeah.
Clearly looks like. No, it looks beautiful, and it kind of helps to, because it's not a huge budget movie. It kind of helps to cover up some of the CG too.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But it's it's a very striking film in black and white. It's like a feeling of a Night of the Living Dead,
right?
Like that kind of feel. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna pick.
Okay.
The Mist and Creepshow, top tier Stephen King.
All right. So I'll watch those. If I have time, I'll try to squeeze in the book. If not, I'll be breaking that rule. All right. So I guess that brings us to the end of this episode. Mm-hmm. Join us next time as I watch the Stephen King movies that Josh has chosen. But until then, I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And this has been The Real Opposites.